I first met this year's commencement speaker in my 20s over pasta in a quaint restaurant in downtown Culver City. As we lingered late into the evening over a great meal, we told many stories of our Christian and intellectual formation, and our shared experience of faithful men and women inviting us to devote our lives to the benefit of young people. Little did we know that that moment was the beginning of 2 decades of shared work and ministry to teach a generation to think and live well. Dr. Ben Roberson and his wife Cassidy are founders of Pacifica. Starting in 2011, they gathered monthly with a handful of other founders in the living rooms around Orange County. Often the living rooms of the Baas, Carlsons, Bonsons, and Hills, all founding families and later founding trustees. In 2014, Dr. Roberson assumed the role of Pacifica's founding principal. We met for our first day of work on the Starbucks just over here on 17th Street in Costa Mesa. During Pacifica's founding year, fondly referred to as Year Zero, Dr. Roberson spent much of his time in living rooms, coffee houses, Panera Bread, and pretty much anywhere else anybody would meet with him to share his enthusiasm for the vision and mission of Pacifica. When we finally got some small office space, we would write the names of every family and students, faculty, or staff member who we thought might be interested in joining us. So there was this whiteboard in the corner, and each morning we gathered in front of that whiteboard to pray, to ask the Lord's favor in bringing the right people together to launch this school. After a student or family would say no to us for the 3rd or 4th time, we would send in Ben, who would somehow winsomely close the deal. And this happened so often that Mr. Garcia lovingly gave him the nickname, the Closer. Pacifica successfully launched just 1 year later in the fall of 2015 with 49 students and an excellent founding faculty and staff, in large part due to the tremendous efforts and faithfulness of Dr. Roberson. Today, with an enrollment of 345 students and hundreds of alumni around the globe, Ben is concluding his 10th year as founding principal. It is right and good and a sincere privilege that we hear now from a man who's given everything he has for well more than a decade of his life to faithfully build and steward Pacifica. Please join me in welcoming our very own Dr. Ben, the Closer, Roberson.
I should clarify, we did meet when David was in his 20s. It was not 50 years ago, though. Working with David is a gift. It's the gift of friendship. It's the gift of friendship over time. I believe we've worked together for 16 years. And that patio that he mentioned was the first time we had a meal together. And I remember it because I was interviewing for the Dean of Students position at Pacifica Santa Monica. And I was so nervous. They had their head of school, principal. David was there. It was the first time I'd met him. And it was like this little Italian food restaurant. And I so badly wanted to impress them. The waitress comes over and she starts to ask for our food. And she asked me if I want any wine. And I'm in my 20s and I had no idea what wine to order. I didn't know the name of a wine. So what a normal person would do in that moment is say no thank you and order a Coke, right? But I made a sarcastic remark out of nervousness, and I said, no, I took the Nazarite vow. That's kind of how it landed. And to be clear, I did not take the Nazarite vow, which is the vow that you don't have alcohol or cut your hair. Samson from the book of Judges. I didn't do that. But no one said anything, right? They had your response. So they just kind of stared at me. And they were so respectful and so hospitable that none of them ordered wine. And then I was like, oh. So I got so nervous because I realized I'm going to have to live with this lie. And I can no longer cut my hair or drink wine, which at that point wasn't a big deal. Well, in time, this moment, of course, turned out to be something that David and I can look back at and laugh. It's the type of joy you get from a long-standing friendship. In fact, I actually have some pictures from that season of our friendship, and I wanted to share them Unfortunately, they told us the big screens aren't working. So I called Brandon Arbini from Fast Signs, and he made us some blow-up pictures. So Nick McDougall and Sadie Bonson, I'm going to have you bring up one picture. So Sadie's going to show them to our graduates, and Nick's going to show it to the audience. This is PowerPoint slide 1. Hold it up so they can see. So here's what we have. The guy with the Run DMC shirt is David O'Neill. I'm in the blue, and I look pretty much the same. So that's like one of the first all-school retreats, very early on. And then I have one more picture. You can, next. Swipe. Who needs PowerPoint? So David's holding a lamp in the middle there, if you can see that picture. And I love this picture of David and all of us because it's the one marketing idea that David had that failed. See, he nicknamed the school PCH and put it on sweatshirts. And when people would look at us, they thought of one of two things. The first was, hey, did you guys shop at CVS for your clothes? Or do you guys really enjoy coastal driving? Those are the two comments. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Sadie. It brings me a lot of joy to recount these memories I have with Dave. It's a friendship built on familiarity and experiences and growing up together, quirks, faults, and strengths alike. And the friendship that I've described so far is actually pretty typical. In fact, lots of people have friendships like the one I just described. Good people and bad people. However, my friendship with David is much more substantial than what I've described thus far. It is distinct from the friendships that I have with the people on my street. It's distinct from the friendships I have with friends from high school and college who I've spent more time with, who I've had more experiences with. And this is because the friendship that I have with David has shaped me to be a more substantial person, to live with more significant purpose, to be more adventurous, to be more confident, more faithful, and at the root, to be aimed at what is good. My life is different than it would have been without this friendship. My marriage, my vocation, my fatherhood, my church life, my life with Christ, all the ordinary tasks that I take on each day have been formed in a more substantial and purposeful way. All because I have a friend with a great soul. Graduates, in your time at Pacifica, you've been offered this same gift. You've been surrounded by men and women who have great souls. Your teachers, your staff, your coaches, and even many among yourselves have great souls. And to the degree that you've leaned in with these individuals, you've been formed and shaped by them. Pacifica has taught you to notice that some friendships do more for you than others. And there is a word for a great soul, magnanimity. And this virtue is rarely talked about, and I think I know the reason. It's really hard to say. It sounds like magnetism, and it has N's and M's that are close together. It might help to think of it this way. Magna is translated from the Latin as great, and animus is the word for soul. And put them together and you get magnanimous. The idea here is that there are people walking around who have great souls and others who have small souls. Some who are more substantial and some who are less substantial. Some who are more real and some who are less real. Some who are closer in communion with Christ and some who are further away from Christ. Some who experience a sense of purpose that leads to a more joy-filled life, and some who find themselves lacking in direction and disillusioned. Graduates, I want to encourage you in two ways this evening, and these two ways are connected. First is to find friends with great souls, and second, to forge a great soul for yourself. In Lewis's Abolition of Man, he describes magnanimity. He says there's the head, which is our reason, and the reason is supposed to be in charge. And there's the belly, where we have appetites, like hunger. And our appetites aren't not necessarily bad, But if you let your appetites run your life's going to be a hot mess. So reason is supposed to be in charge of your appetites, but unfortunately, it can't do this, at least not with much success. When reason and appetite are in conflict, appetite wins. So Lewis says we need a chest. This chest is our well-formed and rightly ordered passions. It is a trained love opposed to an impulse love for what is good. This quality of the chest is the love that has been cultivated over years, sustained, becoming a habit, and after it is a habit, it becomes a core to who you are. It becomes a deep love in your chest, and if you were to fail it, it would go against who you are at your core. This quality of chest is magnanimity. The magnanimous person, the person with the great soul, has a chest that is aimed at good things. On the other hand, if you cultivate a love for trivial things, for bad things, you're not magnanimous. The person who dreams of or pursues the trivial or the bad has a small soul. So, how do we cultivate magnanimity? Graduates, the entire education at Pacifica is one that is aimed at forging men and women towards magnanimity. We strive to create a magnanimous culture, one where everything we do is a tool to train your heart towards great things. Our intent has been to educate your heart, to give you a quality of chest, a great soul. The biggest change that you will experience after commencement is that you will have to create a magnanimous life for yourself. And if you desire a great soul, you will have to work at it. It will not come easy. No one plans to foster a small soul. No one wants an insignificant life. They let it happen. And like getting in shape, cultivating a great soul takes regular practice and a commitment in your day-to-day habits. So what are the practices that lead to a great soul? I have 20. But Stratton said I should cut that way down. So here's some. First, establish traditions and rhythms in your life that orient your heart towards what has meaning and purpose. At Pacifica, we have the all-school the dedication service, our all-school retreat, Friendsgiving, lessons and carols, prayer. The church calendar is integrated into our chapels. We have this commencement. All of these traditions and rhythms that we value form us over time. And not all of us enjoy them all the time, especially the first time around. However, most of us grow to recognize the goodness they create in our life, and some of us even recognize the way it forms us over time. So students, as you move into this next season, engage in the most important traditions and rhythms of family, school, work, and church. Find a church. Go weekly. I would add, go to funerals. Go to weddings. Don't miss the big moments in your life and your friend's life. And invite others into your own moments of importance. Be open-handed and open-hearted. This is what men and women with great souls do. Second, do challenging and meaningful things. At Pacifica, we asked you to take risks and to do hard things. We made you memorize and speak for 47 minutes in public. We made you read hard books, write long papers, and engage in difficult discussions. And for those of you who leaned into these challenging tasks, your hearts all the more formed, and this graduation all the more sweet. So likewise, it's up to you to continue to practice the task of doing hard things. Don't settle for mediocrity. Third, practice beauty. There's a reason that Pacifica travels to the mountains for the all-school retreat. There's a reason we faced our building to be towards the ocean and towards a beautiful open field. Spend time in beauty. Visit state and national parks. Get outside. When you spend time with beauty, you rise above yourself and you're better able to contemplate things that are beautiful and recognize what is true and good. Fourth, and you knew this was coming, read good books. Like the world we live in, good stories are full of adventures, heroes, conflict, and romance. These stories expose our own struggle for goodness and greatness, our desire for a great soul. So whether you're reading Homer or Steinbeck or Beauty and the Beast, engaging with moral dilemmas and virtuous characters educates our hearts. It forms our moral imagination. So friends, keep reading. Read widely and consistently. And I know that screens are a competitor. Social media will shrink your soul. Put them down, set aside to read, even if it's 20 minutes a day. Number 5, find friends who have great souls and do the first 4 things with them. Graduates, next year you will be engaged with a new friend group. Don't settle for just anyone. And how will you know that you have a friend with a great soul? Because a great soul will desire what is good for you and good for themselves. They will celebrate your wins, encourage you towards great soul-forming habits, and they themselves will be aimed at what is good. And of course, you will need to be a good friend to others, celebrating their wins and encouraging them towards what is good. One of the most important choices that you will make in the upcoming year will be who you choose to spend time with and the life that you choose to create with them. Lastly, and most importantly, imitate Christ. Christ had the greatest soul of all. Christ is the most magnanimous. His chest was aimed towards the ultimate good all the time. He is our prime example. The spiritual disciplines are the best tools to orient our souls in the right direction. To name a few, sustain a routine of prayer. Read scripture on the regular. Seek time in solitude. A great soul is cultivated through spiritual disciplines because they clarify our meaning and purpose. They reduce anxiety in moments of struggle because we further comprehend that good ultimately triumphs over evil. And as we strengthen our faith and therefore our confidence, it frees us to act more justly and to love more lavishly. Graduates, again, I want to encourage you in these 2 ways. Create a magnanimous life. Practice the habits that orient your chest towards what is good. And in this next chapter of life, seek out a great soul in friendship. And it doesn't have to be someone accomplished, simply an ordinary person seeking what is good for themselves and others. Remember the great souls who surrounded you at Pacifica, the faculty, the coaches, the staff, and remember your parents, who you may be taking for granted. I don't think you will for long. These are some of the deepest and most magnanimous souls you will ever meet. The life of the magnanimous person, the person with the great soul, is nothing more than an ordinary person who sees more clearly the reality of the rich love of Christ, who has cultivated his or her sentiments towards what is good, and over time and with good friendship, finds a clearer purpose and the reality that leads to a joy-filled life. Graduates, this is my hope and prayer for you. Thank you.